What would make a daughter cut off all contact with one of the most famous actors in the world? What could possibly drive a wedge so deep between a father and child that they stop speaking entirely? Today we're going to talk about something that has been making headlines and breaking hearts across Hollywood. We're diving into the story of Tom Cruise and his daughter Sui, and the heartbreaking reasons behind their fractured relationship. This isn't just another celebrity gossip story. This is about family, beliefs, and the painful choices people sometimes have to make. So stick around, because what you're about to hear might completely change how you see this Hollywood superstar. Let's start at the beginning. Tom Cruise is a name that everyone knows. He's the guy who hangs off airplanes, does his own stunts, and has given us some of the most iconic movies in cinema history. From Top Gun to Mission Impossible, he's been a massive part of Hollywood for decades. But behind all the action scenes and red carpet appearances, there's been a personal story unfolding that most people don't talk about openly. And at the center of that story is his daughter Sui. Sui Cruise was born in April 2006, and from the moment she came into the world, she was one of the most photographed children on the planet. Her parents were Tom Cruise and actress Katie Holmes, who at the time were one of Hollywood's most talked-about couples. People remember when Tom jumped on Oprah's couch declaring his love for Katie. It was this huge romantic gesture that everyone was talking about. And when Sui was born, it seemed like they had this picture-perfect family. For the first few years of Sui's life, the paparazzi couldn't get enough of her. There were photos of Tom holding her, playing with her, and being what looked like a devoted dad. He seemed to absolutely adore his little girl. People saw them together at events, on outings, and it all looked so normal and loving. But then something changed. Something that would alter the course of their relationship forever. In 2012, when Sui was just 6 years old, Katie Holmes did something that shocked the entertainment world. She filed for divorce from Tom Cruise. But this wasn't just any divorce. The way Katie handled it suggested that something serious was going on behind the scenes. She filed the papers in New York rather than California, and she did it in a way that seemed calculated and protective. Sources at the time said she was trying to protect Sui, though from what exactly wasn't immediately clear to the public. The divorce was finalized pretty quickly, especially for a celebrity split. Within just a few months, it was all done. Katie got primary custody of Sui, and they moved to New York City to start a new life. And that's when people started noticing something strange. Tom Cruise, the man who had seemed so devoted to his daughter, suddenly wasn't around anymore. The paparazzi photos of them together stopped. The public sightings ended. It was like a switch had been flipped. Now, years have passed since that divorce. Sui is no longer that little girl in designer dresses being carried by a famous dad. She's 19 years old now, a young woman trying to figure out her own path in life. And according to recent reports and sources close to the family, she's finally ready to talk about what really happened. She's ready to explain why she made the painful decision to cut off contact with her father. So what's the real reason? Why would a daughter choose to have no relationship with her dad? The answer, according to those who know the situation, comes down to one word that has followed Tom Cruise for much of his adult life. That word is Scientology. For those who don't know, Scientology is a controversial religious organization that Tom Cruise has been deeply involved with for decades. He is not just a casual member. He is one of their most famous and outspoken supporters. The organization was founded in the 1950s by a science fiction writer named L. Ron Hubbard, and over the years, it has been the subject of intense scrutiny, documentaries, and investigations. Many former members have come forward with troubling stories about their experiences. Tom Cruise has defended Scientology publicly many times. He has spoken about how it helped him with dyslexia and how it's been a positive force in his life. But here's where things get complicated for his family relationships. Scientology has some very strict rules about members who leave the organization or who are critical of it. One of these rules is called disconnection. Disconnection is exactly what it sounds like. If someone leaves Scientology or is labeled a suppressive person by the organization, active members are expected to cut off all contact with that person. And yes, this rule applies even to family members. Parents have disconnected from children. Siblings have stopped speaking to each other. And in this case, it appears to have affected the relationship between Tom and Sui. When Katie Holmes filed for divorce back in 2012, there were whispers that Scientology played a major role in her decision. While Katie has never publicly gone into great detail about her reasons, those close to the situation have suggested that she became concerned about how deeply Sui might be drawn into the organization as she grew older. Katie herself had studied Scientology when she was married to Tom, but she was never as committed to it as he was. After the divorce, Katie made sure that Sui was raised outside of Scientology's influence. She enrolled her in regular schools in New York City. She gave her as normal a childhood as possible for someone with famous parents. And most importantly, she kept her away from the church that had been such a huge part of Tom's life. But this decision came with a heartbreaking cost. It meant that Tom, as a devoted Scientologist, faced a choice between his daughter and his faith. According to report from people who have followed this story closely, Tom chose Scientology. Now, it's important to understand that this probably wasn't a simple or easy choice for him. Those who know about the inner workings of Scientology say that the organization puts enormous pressure on its members to follow the disconnection policy. There are consequences for members who refuse to disconnect from people the church considers problematic. Tom, being one of their most high-profile members, would face intense scrutiny if he didn't follow the rules. But from Sui's perspective, the reason behind her father's absence doesn't really matter as much as the absence itself. Imagine being a little girl who once had a dad who seemed to love you, who played with you and held you, and then suddenly he's just gone. Not because he died or because he moved far away, but because of a choice. Because something else became more important than you. As Sui grew up in New York with her mom, she had to process this abandonment. She had to figure out why her father wasn't at her school plays, her birthday parties, her important moments. She watched other kids with their dads and had to understand why Hayes wasn't there. And as she got older and started to understand more about Scientology and its role in her father's life, she began to see the bigger picture. Sources say that Sui has had some contact with Tom's other children from his previous marriage to Nicole Kidman. Tom has 2 adopted kids, Isabella and Connor, who are both active Scientologists. Interestingly, Nicole Kidman, who left Scientology after her divorce from Tom, also experienced disconnection from Isabella and Connor. It's a pattern that keeps repeating in Tom's life. The people who leave Scientology or reject it end up disconnected from him and his life. Now at 19, Sui is old enough to make her own choices about relationships and family. And according to recent information, she has decided that she doesn't want a relationship with Tom. This isn't about him reaching out and her not responding. This is about her actively choosing to keep that distance. She's made peace with the fact that her father chose his beliefs over being present in her life, and she's decided she doesn't need that kind of conditional love in her world. People who know Sui say she's grown into a thoughtful, intelligent young woman. She's close with her mother Katie, who has worked hard to give her a stable and loving home. Sui is reportedly interested in fashion and the arts, and she's figuring out what she wants to do with her life. She's doing all of this without her famous father's involvement, and from what we can tell, she's okay with that. This decision to cut off contact wasn't made lightly or suddenly. It's been a gradual process that started when she was very young, and has solidified as she's gotten older and understood more about the situation. She's watched documentaries about Scientology. She's heard stories from other people who have experienced disconnection. She understands that she's not alone in this experience, that there are many families torn apart by this organization's policies. What makes this story even more painful is that Tom Cruise, by all accounts, really did love Sui when she was born. People who were around him during those early years say he was genuinely devoted to her. But his commitment to Scientology was even stronger. And when forced to choose between maintaining a relationship with his daughter and staying in good standing with the church, he chose the church. Whether he felt he had no other choice or whether he genuinely believed it was a right decision, we may never fully know. But the result is the same. A father and daughter who barely know each other anymore. There's something deeply sad about the whole situation. Tom Cruise is getting older now. He's in his 60s, still making action movies and doing incredible stunts, but is missing out on watching his daughter grow up. He's missing her graduation, her achievements, her struggles, all the things that parents are supposed to be there for. And Sui is missing out on having a father, on that relationship and support that every child deserves. The story of Tom and Sui isn't unique in Scientology circles, but it is particularly visible because of Tom's fame. Former Scientologists have spoken out about how the disconnection policy has destroyed their families. There are parents who haven't spoken to their children in years. There are siblings who have become strangers. The policy is one of the most criticized aspects of the organization, but it remains in place, and people like Tom continue to follow it. Some people have asked whether Tom might ever change his mind, whether he might choose to leave Scientology to rebuild his relationship with Sui. But those who understand his level of commitment to the organization say it's highly unlikely. Tom isn't just a member of Scientology. He's essentially their most valuable ambassador. He's promoted the organization, defended it publicly, and built much of his identity around it. Walking away would mean admitting that something he's devoted decades to might have cost him his relationship with his daughter. That's a difficult thing for anyone to face. For Sui, the decision to speak out about this, to let people know the real reason behind their estrangement, is brave. She's choosing to tell her truth even though it involves one of the most powerful and famous people in Hollywood. She's not doing it for attention or sympathy. She's doing it because it's her story, and she has a right to share it. She's letting other people who have experienced similar situations know they are not alone. This whole situation raises bigger questions about faith, family, and what we're willing to sacrifice for our beliefs. Everyone has a right to their religious choices. But when those choices come to cost of relationships with our children, we have to ask ourselves what we're really gaining and what we're losing. Is any belief system worth losing your daughter over? Is any organization worth never seeing your child grow up? Katie Holmes has largely stayed quiet about the specific reason for the divorce and the estrangement between Tom and Sui. She's focused on being a good mother and protecting her daughter's privacy as much as possible. But her actions have spoken volumes. By getting Sui away from Scientology's influence and giving her a normal life in New York, she made her priorities clear. Her daughter's well-being came first, even if it meant ending her marriage to one of the biggest movie stars in the world. The sad reality is that this story probably won't have a happy ending where Tom and Sui reconcile and rebuild their relationship. Too much time has passed. Too much hurt has accumulated. Sui has grown up without her father, and she's learned to be okay with that. She's built a life that doesn't include him, and at this point, his presence would probably feel more disruptive than healing. What we can take away from this story is a reminder that fame and success don't protect anyone from family problems. Tom Cruise might be one of the most successful actors in history, but is also a father who doesn't have a relationship with his daughter. All the movie premieres and standing ovations in the world can't make up for missing your child's life. All the money and fame can't fill that void. For those of us watching from the outside, this story is a reminder to think about our own priorities. What are we putting first in our lives? Are we making choices that we'll regret later? Are we letting anything come between us and the people we love? These are questions worth asking ourselves before it's too late to change course. Sui Cruise is now a young adult forging her own path. She's no longer defined by being Tom Cruise's daughter. She's Sui, a person in her own right with her own dreams and goals. And while it's heartbreaking that she had to grow up without her father, she seems to be doing okay. She has a mother who loves her fiercely, friends who support her, and a future ahead of her that she gets to define on her own terms. As for Tom Cruise, only he knows whether he has regrets about how things turned out. Only he knows if he thinks about the daughter he doesn't see and wonders what she's doing, how she's feeling, what kind of person she's becoming. He's made his choices, and now he has to live with them. Success in Hollywood can't cure the loneliness of not knowing your own child. This story reminds us that everyone, no matter how famous or successful, is dealing with something. Behind the glamorous photos and movie premieres, there are real people with real pain and real family struggles. The Cruise family situation is just one example of how complicated life can be, how difficult choices can have lasting consequences, and how sometimes the things we think are most important end up costing us what actually matters most. If you found this story as moving and thought-provoking as I did, please hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss our deep dives into the real stories behind the headlines. These are the stories that matter, the human stories that remind us we're all dealing with something, whether we're famous or not. Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts on this situation. Do you think Tom made the right choice? Could things have been different? Let's keep this conversation going. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.